Welcome. Hashtag it's Steve here once again with the brand new and improved American Fitbaw cast. Did I oversell that at all? Or so we have our own channel. We are good to go. We are going independent. And this is the first. The first thing I suppose you probably noticed is we have no intro music, which is a little bit on the meh side, but we'll sort that out at some point in due course. We're moving away, we'll get our thing going, and then that's something we can sort out in the future. So if you are a band or you have some music and you want to give us it for free, please, thanks very much, that would be awesome.
Yeah, so while we're on the subject of we're going independent, can we maybe open up by thanking the Fair City Podcast Network for hosting us as we started, and giving us that trail to make sure that we enjoy it as much as anything else. So thanks for giving us a head start, guys.
Totally. No, thanks. Much appreciated. Absolutely, yes. So, obviously we've heard from Andrew, and we'll go around the houses in a second. I'm here, obviously, my regular co-host for our divisional roundup. So over the next 8 weeks, we're going to do a series of smaller podcasts, focusing on each division, predicting who will finish where in the upcoming season. Gav, man, what have you been up
to? Just chilling.
Like a villain.
No. Got a new job. Getting traded from Paisley to Perth, which will be fun.
Traded up.
The pest from the west comes to Perth.
Yeah,
it's worse than the beast from the east.
So start a new job, working with you guys again. So that's going to be fun.
I know, how funny is that? How that's all come round.
Couldn't make it up. But yeah, apart from that, all good. All I was thinking there though, like I remember just before we came on air, you were talking about like one of your mates and his political rants. I was thinking, are we like Nicola Sturgeon's envy? Like we've became independent and she's not.
Freedom! I'm gonna pay the fence half the loot.
Or are we going to be like Brexit and then we'll go back to Fair City Podcast when this is a disaster?
We've changed our mind. Can we have you back, please? Yes.
We can't survive without the intro music.
It's all gone so horribly wrong. No, it'll be fine. We will persevere. Andrew, how about yourself? What have you been up to, buddy?
Oh, just much like last time, making friends with paintbrushes.
I'd actually forgotten about that during the recording, and then you dropped that picture in about 3 or 4 days later on WhatsApp. I'm just here with my pals, and it was 2 paintbrushes sitting in a tub.
That was awesome.
Yeah, so I have one room left to paint in my new house, so I'll get moved into it sometime this decade.
I think what we all want to know though is, once you finish painting, are you still going to be friends with the paintbrushes, or are you just going to move on from them?
I'll put them back into the loft where they belong.
And if I were you, I would chuck them in amongst all those trees that you ripped up in the front garden and have like a celebratory bonfire.
Well, I have already upset a neighbour by starting a bonfire the other night.
Sweet. Yeah. Welcome to the neighbourhood. Who's this new hoodlum that's moved in? He's just setting everything on fire. You should say there's a song. I'm trying to think who sung it. I know there was variations by multiple bands have done it, and it's it goes like, we don't need the water, let the motherfuckers
Was it not the Bloodhound Gang?
Oh, was it? Oh, it probably is actually. Yeah. I'll find out. I'll let you know anyway. Doesn't matter. We are digressing massively, as of course we always do. So 4.5 minutes in, and we're nowhere near the division.
Short podcast, he said.
Yeah.
Take us back. Take us back. We need stability.
So, hot off the press, as I was setting up just half an hour ago, Julian Edelman has been suspended 4 games for performance-enhancing drugs. Yet again, somebody else. Anybody been reading anything on that yet?
No, but one thing I did want to... every time I see, you see PED all the time for players, but I just always think of, do you remember those sweets PEZ? Do you remember them?
My kids love them.
You know the little things that you clip
Sitting
open?
there with the little, the little goofy heads, or just popping these little things out like, on the sideline, give me that.
I just always imagine like that's what I always think of when I see it. I'm just like, imagine like Roger Goodell like fining players because that's what they were doing.
Oh, he absolutely would. They wouldn't be officially NFL branded, so if you're caught doing anything with them on the sideline, he'd get you like a 2-game ban just for doing that. The boy's a mentalist. So yeah, he's so I don't know what it is or any. I've really it's stat breaking. I haven't read into too much, but it's 4 games he's getting. So I think the Patriots are sitting there probably clasping their hands, going, "Ha! At least that's not in our books." So yeah, goes down to Miami and gets busted for drugs. The culture thing down there actually quite interesting.
Wait, was it not Edelman? Are you talking about Amendola?
Oh right, no. Oh god, it is. I'm getting that all mixed up then. Oh, so it is Edelman. Oh, Donny's going to be raging. I was about to say, oh, Johnny's going to be loving this. He'd be fine. Oh well, okay, right. I'll shut up then, seeing as I'm getting everything wrong.
Please take us back, Fair City. Please take us back. We've ruined the podcast.
We just can this and start again.
Look what happens when we don't have intro music.
No, I don't have.
We don't have intro music. We just lose our way.
Can't do it again. Yes, apologies, of course. Edelman at the Patriots. So, so that's fun. I mean, they're
so
probably
it just adds to the obviously the back end of last year. There were perceived off-field issues there. So, what does it mean for the Patriots?
Is this the year? Is this the year that Brady's going to regress? Finally,
Fingers
at
crossed.
the age of 41. Absolutely not. That was really quiet. What? Say that again? I could tell by your face in the Skype that you were just really slow.
Fingers crossed is what it was.
Yeah, I know. But there's teams that have been dominant. I mean, that the thing that I love about the NFL so much is the whole parity thing. The fact that every couple of years it all swings round. But the problem has been fairly obviously in the AFC, in my opinion, is 2 teams generally have dominated that for about the last 5-6 years minimum, and that is the Steelers and the Patriots, and no one else really seems to be having much of a look in. And I know I'm generalising that much, but that's what it's felt like to me. So I'm at the point where I was like, come on, somebody else come through the ranks and start causing some havoc. So,
yeah,
but that's me.
I know, like that. These are the sort of things that like we'll all know over the last few years that. Multiple points that we said, is this them done? Gronk's injuries, is he done? There's so many times where we've said this with the Patriots and they just always find a way. So I look forward to Kenny Britt having 1,200 yards and 8 touchdowns. Because we all know it's going to happen.
It probably is. 4 years from now, Brady's 45 and he's still ripping out 4,500 yard seasons, 40 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, which everyone else is just sitting there crying, go like, he's clearly been replaced by a robot. Somebody prove it so we can get him out of the league. But, anyway, we're not here to talk about the AFC East at all. We are first going to be focusing on the AFC South. Quick 2 seconds on each of the teams then. So each team, I'll say, same with every team in every division, has had quite a few upgrades through the off-season, whether it be through free agency or draft or an area that they want to sort of improve on. In your guys' opinions, we'll go around the team and we'll just see quickly what do we think was one of the best moves or areas that they improved on in general. So no particular order to the way the teams are coming out. First of all, we'll go with the Jags. Andrew.
Give me a second, I need to get that place in my article.
Super professional here, folks.
Gav, what do you think?
The most important thing that for the Jags is they haven't really lost anyone. So the continuity that they've got, that to me is the most important thing for them. It's easy to look at the signings and whatnot, but I think that the fact that they've kept all their key pieces, they've kept faith in Blake Bortles, they've started to get a game plan where they can get the best out of him. So that's what I think is the best thing about the Jags for this upcoming season.
Yeah, so they kept that. They obviously had the best defense in the league last year. I think in terms of their numbers, it was clear, head and shoulders above anyone else, really. In the draft.
Christ, we're
Yeah,
going
we are
to
gonna
shit
end.
at this bit.
Well,
Andrew's three-part intro into how the Jags.
So, Jags, I agree with you there, Gav. They have not really lost anybody, which, if you think of how generally over the last few years, a team that has done really quite well, either got to the Super Bowl or won the championship, championship game or things like that, a lot of them will lose a lot of pieces because it just happens to be the way teams mature. They get lots of good players that are hitting their peaks at the same time, and a lot of them just end up hitting free agency and disappearing off, and quite a lot of teams kind of get decimated on a semi-routine basis. But the Jags seem to have come out of this fairly flying. Yeah, they've lost Hearns and Robinson. Robinson was injured anyway, so no much difference on last year, and there is potentially the argument that Hearns was never really going to be that guy, that they were a couple of years ago or whatnot, but that's kind of by the by. But, because they kept things together, actually they've improved on defense. They drafted somebody second round, or was it the first round pick? I can't even think. Some safety, who everyone was saying, like, not only have they had a pretty scary back end of the defense anyway, they've gone and improved on that. So it's a pretty terrible sight for the rest of the teams in the division, I suppose.
Spoiler.
I was waiting for him to follow in. I've just realised what he said.
I missed that. Sorry.
Right, Andrew, you found this any?
I said it was a spoiler.
Slow today. Slow. They've also beefed up their offensive line, haven't they? Bringing in a guard.
Oh,
why are you saying everything like it's such a mystery?
I'm teasing the conversation.
How much I can remember, to be honest, mate. Yeah,
they brought in Andrew Norwell.
Shot to shit at the minute. Oh God, so they did. Oh yeah, what a great pickup that was. Actually, did I not bung that in? We've talked about that on the free agency episode. I'm sure I did something really daft and said that I could well be one of the signings of the summer, and I've completely.
And then you forgot.
Four episodes later. yeah, well.
We've just lost all our listeners.
Again. Never mind. Right, so, Jags. Anything else before we move on to next team, Andrew?
No, I don't think so. I didn't have anything anyway.
The basics. Right, let's go on to Tennessee. So,
can I go first?
Yes, please do.
Mine's is quite a quirky one, and that's why I wanted to go first. The best thing that the Tennessee Titans done was they brought in a guy called Matt LaFleur as their offensive coordinator. And let me tell you why that is the best thing that the Tennessee Titans done. Matt LaFleur last year was the offensive coordinator for none other than the LA Rams and Jared Goff. Year before that, Matt LaFleur was the quarterback coach for Matt Ryan and his MVP season. So you put that into pieces like Marcus Mariota with one of the best offensive lines with Derrick Henry, Dion Lewis, all the wide receivers they've got, Delaney Walker. To me, that's going to be really good for them. So that's what I really like about the Tennessee Titans.
Yeah, so Tennessee, I didn't actually realise what you said there, Gav. As in, I haven't read about it. So, and that's a great shout. If you think about what LaFleur's done for the last couple of years and who he's done it with, if he can get anything close to, 75% of that production out of Tennessee this year, that's going to make leaps and bounds for them. The only thing that I sort of probably can add to that will just showing my age here, being the old boy of the cast. Mike Vrabel, their new coach, he is the first head coach that I've seen play. When I first got into this again not so long ago, he was still absolutely ball wrecking, causing havoc with the Patriots. And look, he's now head coach. So, and I have this horrible feeling that over the next sort of 10 years, this is going to start to become more and more. And I'm going to get to a stage where I remember when I was a kid and all these people used to play in the league and blah blah blah. But anyway, I digress. He seems to have done really quite well when he was at Houston. All with he was the defensive coordinator last year, and then linebackers coach for a few seasons prior to that. I think is the way he came up through the ranks. But he's had a shot, so we'll see whether he can follow up on that.
I think on the player front, they made a few moves in free agency, obviously as everyone does. But in terms of the draft, they added Harold Landry, so another option in the pass rushing game. I think it's probably something they needed. So yeah, I think that was a good move from them.
All right, on to the Colts then. Andrew, you want to start with the Colts? No, you don't. Right.
Okay, I'll go on. I'll jump in. The Colts. The best thing that's happened to the Colts this off-season is that they have got a lot of hope that Andrew Luck will be ready for the start of the season.
The story that was all of last off-season has become the same thing. But everyone seems to be taking it with a pinch of salt this year, I feel.
Yeah, I think so. But I do also think that he'll be ready.
He's not thrown a football yet.
I wouldn't be concerned about that too much.
Nah.
I don't think that... It's not like he's going to forget how to throw it. It's not like he's been space jammed and they sucked the talent out of him. Yeah, I think he'll be absolutely fine. And they obviously done a lot of stuff like picking up Quentin Nelson. That's a good move for them. So if they get him back, they've improved their offensive line. That sounds like a good start for me.
Yeah, I think Quentin Nelson is the best move that they made. They made a lot of small improvements, I think, but in terms of the future, I think they're one of the teams that have the biggest amount of cap space. So they've got potential to make some huge improvements, but maybe they're waiting until they're sure of Luck's fitness before doing that. I don't know. But yeah, we'll see how they go. But I think it all depends on that man, Andrew Luck, doesn't it?
Pretty much. Well, I mean, it's totally quarterback-driven league that everyone says, and you have to have one of any capable sense to have a real hope of doing something decent. You could almost argue that one of the only things that stopped the Jags last season was Bortles. But I don't know. He was he was a bit hit and miss as December into January, but I don't think he was as horrific as people made out. But the Colts, yeah, they did mass improvement on the old line. So Nelson's obviously the big ticket one, but they picked up somebody in the second round as well. It was the very beginning of the third round. They picked up another guard to help out. I think they had something like 5 picks. 5 picks by the end of the second round. I think they had.
Yeah, that sounds roughly right.
Yeah, I think they ended up with their first round plus a couple.
Well, they took a first and 2 seconds from the Jets, didn't they? When the Jets moved up to get Darnold.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, no, that is right enough. So that's what loaded them up. Plus they had theirs anyway, and I think they got another one, either that or they jumped into the bottom of the second round, something like that. So they had, as you were saying, like they're gearing up for the future. Whether they're going to do particularly well or not this year, as you say, Gav, is entirely on Luck's shoulders, so to speak. Shite pan joke. I forgot it was his shoulder that was busted. Right, anyway, enough about the Colts. Okay, so moving on to the last team in the division, we have the Houston Texans, and I'm just going to throw 2 cents in before you guys get started. The best thing that happened to them this off-season is they got everyone back from injury. Just as black and white as that. I
think that's what everyone was going to say.
Yeah, yeah, as poor souls, they got decimated last season. But not only every team gets injuries, and there's certain teams that get way more injuries than others. I don't know if Houston had more than others, but the problem they had was which players got injured. Watson being the biggest problem, because he was absolutely tearing it up through October. He had some near record breaking streak, was it 16 touchdowns in 4 games or
something like that.
Something mental. I mean, like stuff that rookies had never done before, and they were just like, "Holy moly, what's going on here?" And then,
this was after his debut, which was, I think,
Merciless and JJ Watt as well.
I think after was Watson's debut not statistically one of the worst debuts by a quarterback? His first game, I'm sure it was, and everyone was thinking, "What is this guy?" And then he just started ripping it up.
Yeah, and now everyone seems to be like he is the heir apparent. He could be the quarterback of the division. Which is almost ludicrous to say, but if he follows it up with a half decent season too, Christ, you never know. So,
So
other than that, then anybody?
In terms of moves they made, they needed to address their secondary. And they brought in Aaron Colvin and of course Tyrann Mathieu, who I think is brilliant. So they made good moves there. Gav, any highlights from you?
I think you've covered the two sort of main ones. They've got their team healthy again, and I think Tyrann Mathieu is a huge asset, especially when you've got people like Blake Bortles throwing wobblers in the air. That's just asking for him to pick those off. I also imagine that Blake Bortles probably throws wobblers in the dressing room. He looks like that sort of guy.
This poor guy gets no love whatsoever.
Yeah.
He's going to have to come out with something half decent this season, bless him, because I think the Jags have done really good to stick by him. I think they could have really cut their losses on multiple occasions before now, and they've kind of done what not many teams do, to stick with it and to try and work through things. I think the NFL's becoming very close to football in this country, where you've got 12 games and that's it. Boom, you're gone. Next person in. And the turnover's getting worse. So I'm just worried that things are going to spiral out of control. But the Jags have kind of stuck through it and kind of gone for more a long-term approach, and it seems to be paying dividends for them.
Do you think that they've done that though to free up cap room? Because obviously Bortles isn't getting paid crazy money like all the rest of them. So that, because they've not overly invested in quarterback, that's allowed them to invest in the defensive side. So do you think that's maybe a part of their strategy?
That's a good shout, and that would have worked up until this year, because he's on his 5th year option now, so he must be getting something like,
is it like
16 mil or something?
Which still isn't huge, really.
I suppose, yeah. I mean, the quarterback market's just been reset with Ryan and his 30 million a year average, so in terms of prices, being just over half of what the top is nothing. So you're right enough, I suppose, with it. But he's not playing just off his rookie deal of 300,000-400,000 a year or some crazy low money like that. But it does give them a bit of wiggle room. It's after this year is going to be the big question about what they're going to do with him, I think.
And I think this year, so in 1 year's time, this will be when they draft a QB of the future and they move on from Bortles. I think it makes sense. So if and obviously a lot's to happen in that period, but I'd imagine that's what they would invest their draft in next year, is getting a QB of the future, because they've got pretty much everything else in place.
So, in reverse order then, let's go around everyone and see where we think teams are going to finish. So, in 4th place, Gav, who have you got?
The Jags.
What?
I'm just kidding. The Colts. And there's too much of a gap between the quality of their team overall. And even if Luck does get healthy, when you've got people like Miles Jack or Calais Campbell smashing through you, there's still a huge risk, I think, attached to him. So for that reason, I'm putting the Colts as bottom of the division.
Yep, Colts for me too. I just, much like Gav just said, they're just too far behind the other teams. I mean, this is a division that last year had 2 playoff teams with a third that would have been there or thereabouts. So yeah, Colts still too far back, I think.
Well, I'm going to sound like an idiot then, because I went for Tennessee. I thought the potential of Luck coming back, doing all right, would be enough to catapult them up, because the first 2 years he single-handedly dragged them into the playoffs on an 11-5 team, and that was pretty much just down to him and him only, because they've not had a lot of pieces for a long while. So if he bounces back and he is better, I figured that they would do better than they have done the last few years. Plus, there's a little bit of hope on some of the draft picks coming through and things like that, which is the same for every team. The knock may be more on Tennessee, and this is obviously because I've done this prior to what you said, Gav, about LaFleur being in, which is now probably making them sound even stupider. But I was thinking, is Vrabel going to be one of these really unlucky coaches that just struggles in year one? And there was the whole, should they have moved on from Malarkey because he got them to the postseason last year? And I know it wasn't exciting football, but blah, blah, blah. You kind of know where I'm going with this. So I was just thinking they may regress just a touch, and unfortunately they'll regress a little bit, which gives the Colts the ability to possibly surpass them. So yeah, I put them down as being fourth.
That's exciting.
So yeah, change it up a little bit. Eh?
Yep.
So into third place, Gav. Who have you got sitting in third?
This was a really hard one for me, and this might be silly, but I'm gonna say the Houston Texans in third. And you know what? I believe all the things about Deshaun Watson. I believe how good he'll be, but he's just had an ACL. He's a rookie QB. I think what you'll find is, and again, the thing that goes against him for me is the Texans still have a really poor offensive line. So all it takes is, like I mentioned earlier, like Andrew Luck, if he's got people like Miles Jack or whoever coming smashing into him, could that impact him? Is he going to be the same player in year two, considering he only had 5 or 6 games? And for that reason, I put the Texans at third, because we all know how good JJ Watt and all those guys are, but I don't think that they'll be enough to get them through if Watson isn't healthy. And I still think there's a big risk. There's a big risk with any ACL. But I sound like Andrew.
Dr. Smith is in the house.
So yeah, for that reason, I went for the Texans at 3.
And I'm just going to sound like I'm just copying whatever Gav's saying, because I had the Texans at 3 as well.
I seen your face as soon as he said Houston. You're like, no, that's who I've got.
Similar reasons. Although actually, I think I'll discuss more when I discuss my second pick, because it's not that I don't think the Texans are good. When we discuss who I've got in second, I just think they're better.
No, yeah. I obviously the Yuzu had a resounding fourth place for the Colts. I pipped them into third. I thought that Tennessee would fall back and the Colts would end up one place higher than did last year. One for the luck rebound, as much as Tennessee regressing, it was as much the improvement in the Colts that they could have this year. So that would put them into third. So Gavin, in second place, who have you got finishing runner up in the division?
You know me, I like to fuck shit up. So I went for the Jags.
You did it. Oh, I was wondering if someone was going to.
I went for the Jags at 2. And my reasons are more based on my number 1 pick, which I'll get to in a minute. But just a few things to speak about on the Jags that concern me about their season. Blake Bortles being Blake Bortles. And the fact that he now doesn't have Robinson or Hearns. I know he didn't have them last year. But I think the sort of unknown quantity of people like Cole that they had at wide receiver, that's not really going to be there next year. And there was a few times last season where Leonard Fournette looked a bit busted because of how much they had to use him. So year 2, does he potentially, if he goes out of the game, they've got nothing. If he goes for any length of time, the Jags will fall apart. And there was like a couple of times last year where he just looked busted up. And I know he's obviously had a full off season. But yeah, that's my thinking behind the Jags being pick number 2.
Andrew, who did you go for?
I have gone for pick number 2. I've gone for the Titans. So I think Mariota looked very good last year. I think he'll step up another level this year. He did some weird and wonderful things last year. Who knows what position he's capable of playing, because I think he could play them all. Well, I don't think it'll be enough to get past the Jags, but I think he'll be able to lead them into second place and probably the playoffs again.
Yeah, so I went for Houston coming in as a runner-up in the division. I think with them getting their pieces back, and it was more a bit of a hope that Watson would be maybe not 100% what he was last year, but certainly capable enough to throw those bombs. Was it Fuller that was catching the bombs in that October run where he was just making a mockery? If you had him in the fantasy team, it was like you were going to win every week.
Who did have him in their fantasy team?
Oh, I wonder, would it be Mr. Fantasy Champion 2 years in a run-in, can't stop talking about it, Gavin Miller, by any chance?
Well, now that you mention it.
I know Fuller was taking the mickey, and then of course you've got Hopkins on the other side, who is arguably the best receiver in the league now. Some people will have him right up there. And some of the stuff he's done the last couple of years, it's funny, he's been sneaking up the last few years, because a couple of years ago you had what was the de facto top four you? So you had Julio Jones, you had Antonio Brown, you had AJ Green, and I'm now going to sound like an idiot because I can't think who was in that fourth. Four of them all at the same time. Oh, Demaryius Thomas from the Broncos. He was in that same bracket back then, and I think he's kind of regressed a little bit. But all four of them were hitting their second contracts at the same time, and it was all this waiting game to see who's gonna break the market first, who's gonna get the most, and they all got paid and whatnot. But in that, who was sneaking up behind them was DeAndre Hopkins, and a lot of people were saying he was deserving of the deal at that point, and he never got it. I mean, he has now, and I think he's surpassed them all in terms of annual salary and whatnot. Because he is, I mean, really, you could probably argue Brown's the only one that's gonna out and out challenge him at that number one spot in the league. So yeah, sorry. For that reason, then plus what I was saying earlier, all their pieces coming back, their defense. If Watt comes back on a non-injured form, and Whitney Merciless continues what he's done for the last couple of years, he's been one of those like sneaky defensive players that gets good stats but doesn't have the kudos, because you've got Clowney on one side and Watt on the other. They're taking all the sacks and getting the credit, and Whitney's sitting in the middle, causing some proper havoc. So yeah, that's why I put the Houston Texans second. So, Gav, division champ.
The Tennessee Titans, as I alluded to earlier, and I really don't think you can put it into any more context of when Matt LaFleur, what he done. I know you were worried about Mike Vrabel in his year one as a coach, but Matt LaFleur took Matt Ryan to MVP. Matt Ryan was pretty much considered, a 6-7 out of 10 QB, and then he had that season where he just torched everyone. And that year was the year that Matt LaFleur was his offensive coordinator. Fast forward, he then takes Jared Goff, who looked sheepish, sort of almost not withdrawn, but that way where he looked very unsure of himself in the Rams offense. It looked like it was a bit of a bust. Last year, takes Jared Goff, him and obviously the rest of that coaching team, done wonders for Jared Goff. But Matt LaFleur to take Marcus Mariota, who has had, so many people say he's one of the most talented QBs, he can do everything. So you look at that. They've also brought in Dion Lewis, who is a huge upgrade on DeMarco Murray. So you've got Dion Lewis and Derek Henry running at you behind the offensive line that's got Jack Conklin and Taylor Lewin. For me, that's just, once they get going, they're going to get going. And just that one other thing that I wanted to add is they also picked up Malcolm Butler in the secondary. So that's a really good move. He's a leader. He's won the Super Bowl. So yeah, I think that's a really, really good bit of business for the Titans. So, and for that reason, I think they will do what the Rams sort of done last year, and they'll be just a full 360. They'll be really exciting to watch. They'll be all guns blazing. So yeah, for that reason, the Titans take that division by storm.
Andrew, then, so of course, eagle eye listeners that have been working through this should already know who you and I have, but
yes,
the Patriots.
Let's put them in their disappointment.
Right, so if you listened to our last episode where we did our bold predictions, it will be no surprise that I've gone with the Jaguars as the winners of this division, given that I predicted that they'll win the whole thing. However mad a prediction that might be.
You never know, you could be sitting here in December going, haha, mind that time where I called it, eh?
I was looking at the odds of a Jags to win and to beat the Giants. It's something like 550 to 1. So yes, as I was saying, Jaguars to win. They have retained all their big players on the defensive side of the ball. They have added, as we said, Andrew Norwell, which should help Leonard Fournette in the run game as well. Should hopefully give him a few more gaps and maybe not break down quite so often. So yeah, I think they'll just steamroll it again. They're my pick to win this division.
As they are mine. I Jacksonville in first place, and it might sound stupid, comfortably in first place. There wasn't any much debate at all. Thinking about the teams out in division improvements they made, and I was looking at it on paper and going, God, this is going to be a hell of a division. But I was thinking more about the internal battle between who finishes 2, 3, 4 and whether you get a second team out of this. I actually think Houston might sneak in a wild card out of this division compared to some of the other ones in the AFC. But I had out and out the Jags winning it purely on that defense, reaping all the rewards they did, same as last year, and just making it so much easier for the offense just to scrape them through games. So yeah,
I find it quite funny how I just realised that you had the Titans to finish last and I've got them to finish first, so one of us is going to look like a dick.
I think I make myself look like a dick probably every week we do this, but what's new there? So that rounds up the AFC South then. So nice and snappy episode hopefully for you. If you're new to the podcast, thanks for joining us. We hope you like what you hear and you'll come back for more. And join us next time round where we will be tackling the AFC North. Sign off, guys. Andrew, where can the guys get you?
Yeah, just come find us on Twitter, on Facebook. If you search at the AFcast, you can find us there. We'd love to hear from you.
And Gav, whereabouts can folks get you?
They'll get me in Perth soon. No, you'll find me at GavJohnMill1 on Twitter.
And you'll get me through @WisePranker on the Twitter, or probably just as stop.
That was awkward.
Christ Almighty. Sorry again. Yeah. You get. I can't even say it now. Oh, I might leave this in just to say who's that douchebag hosting this week. You'll catch me at @WisePranker on Twitter, and I think that'll do. I'll just make it short and sweet this time round because I got no idea what I'm saying anymore. Wow!
Please come back. Please don't leave us. We'll get intro music soon. We'll have intro music soon. It's okay.
Yeah. Well, what we could do is when we eventually get it, I'll recut this, and what I'll do is I'll put the exit music on top of when I start speaking. It'd just be your two guys' sign-offs. Right, sorry. Okay, anyway, that's enough of that nonsense. So, thanks again, everyone, and apologies for that ramshackle ending.
At least it was the ending. Normally it's the start.
And we will hear you next time. Thanks very much.
Tyrod Taylor.
Oh, you nearly went a whole episode without it. I can't believe it.
You have to leave that in.